Hey guys, welcome back to day 3 of this devotional series. Now we've been talking about the Book of Ezra and the rebuilding of the altar, which is what Zerubbabel started with. Ezra hasn't even entered into the picture yet. He's going to enter into the picture, here in a couple of minutes. But it's all been about Zerubbabel and Haggai and Zechariah and Cyrus the king and all of these things. And so what begins to happen, though, is once there's a rise of the Levitical, the priesthood, and the prophetic, you're going to get pushed back, right? We talked about that yesterday, and if you missed that, you can go back and you can find that. Here's what happens. When there becomes pushback, you have to literally push forward against the darkness. Now, this is a concept that we've been talking about here for years, piercing the darkness. Years ago, God gave Sharon a vision of Toledo with a dark cloud over our city. And every time she would confess the word of God, every time she would make a prophetic utterance, every time she would lift up a voice of worship, every time she would say a praise to the Lord that would poke like a little pinhole in that dark cloud and a little bit of light would shine through. And so for the last 32 years, Sharon and I have been poking holes in the darkness. We call it piercing the darkness because it sounds way better than poking holes in the darkness, right? Come on. So we've been piercing the darkness for 32 years. When you start to pierce the darkness, when you start to push into the enemy territory, when you start to step into that realm of spiritual authority, there will be pushback. But I want to encourage you, because here's what it says. There was some letters being exchanged. Some people wrote letters to the king, and the king wrote some letters back, and the people wrote letters, and there's this campaign against the people of God. But here's what it says when we get to chapter 6. It says, then according to the word sent by Darius the king. So we've gone from Cyrus being king to now Darius is king. And here's what he says. He says, I want you to follow with all diligence what I have ordered. Now again, you have a carnal, you have just a secular voice, a king that could and probably in many situations was wicked, ungodly, unholy. But he's now making provision for the things of the kingdom. And here's what it says. And the elders of the Jews built and prospered through the prophesying of Haggai the prophet and Zechariah. They finished the building by decree of God. Now, I'm gonna try to behave because it's supposed to be a nice morning devotional, right? Right? Here's what happens. The people of God said, we're going to build. And because they were following a prophetic word, they prospered. Now, you've got to get this. Provision comes with the prophetic. Now, we don't always see it up front. But when you follow the prophetic word of God over your life, like we are following the prophetic word over this house, I'm here to tell you with complete confidence that God will provide. Now, if you don't have a prophetic word, you better go get you another job because you're going to need it. If you don't have a prophetic word over your life and we don't have a prophetic word over our life and we're going to plan to do something, we better go be doing some kind of something to raise some money somehow. I mean, we're going to have to figure out a plan, right? But when you're operating and when we're operating in the prophetic voice of God, we are literally positioning ourselves for the provision that God has for us. Now, watch this. We're still in chapter 6 of Ezra. It says, and the people of Israel, the priests and the Levites and the rest of the returned exiles celebrated the dedication of this house of God with joy. Now, I want to take just the last minute or two of our time together in this devotion as we're leaning in to what God's calling us to do, to say, God does not want this to be a thing of sorrow, hardship, where we're struggling. He wants us to enter into our future with joy. Man, if that doesn't sound like a good plan, I don't know what does. He wants us to step into our future with joy. And so let me encourage you, let me really lean into what the Spirit is saying here, is that we need to be prepared for the joy that comes. Because what happens is, as soon as they finish the completion of the building, they step into a Passover celebration, and it talks about how that they purified themselves and they held the Passover and they celebrated all the goodness of God in that moment. Passover was an amazing Jewish feast, and they said, we're going to get this building done, and we're going to do it with joy, and then we're going to go into the feast of the Passover with joy, because we have accomplished the word that God has prophesied over our life. Now listen, I need you to join me on April the 6th, Sunday morning. You're not going to want to miss this. 9:30 and 11, we're going to be talking about the future and what God is calling Life Chapel into. I can't wait to show you our future. Me, Grant, Sharon, we have a building team that's been working on this. Our leadership team, our elders, our pastors, we've all been working on this together, and we can't wait to show you what Life Chapel's future is going to look like. I look forward to seeing you then.